This anime is about an high school student, named Kanaame, who accidentally triggers a cursed game on his phone, unaware of its deadly consequences. One night, his friend Hamada is being chased by someone, wearing a scary bear helmet and carrying a knife. Hamada considers calling his friend, Kyoto, for help, but decides to call Kanaame instead. Unfortunately, Hamada gets trapped and the attacker catches him. Hamada tries to fight back by throwing paper cutters, but the attacker dodges them and hurts him badly. The next morning, Kanaame is looking at cheap heavy bikes online because he doesn't have much money. His friend Yota comes over and asks if he saw the street art outside the station. He says weird street art with body outlines is popping up all over Shibuya, and everyone's going crazy about it. He shows Kanaame some pictures, and they find it both creepy and interesting. Just then, their friend Hiroyuki walks in and asks if they've seen Hamada anywhere. They say maybe he's absent, and ask Hiroyuki how they and Hamada got their new bikes, and if they found any good part-time jobs. Hiroyuki says it's not like that, and asks them to let him know if they spot Hamada. Just then, Kanaame mentions that he got a strange notification from Hamada last night, and decides to check it now. He finds a link to a free mobile game called Darwin's Game, and opens it right away out of curiosity. They wonders if Hamada got hooked on it, which might explain why he's skipping school. Knowing what it's about, Hiroyuki tells Kanaame not to open the app, but out of curiosity Kanaame opens it. Suddenly, a snake jumps out of the screen and bites Kanaame's neck. He falls down and loses consciousness. Then, his mobile screen shows he's now a player, and sadly his friend Hamada has passed away. The game is starting in an hour. Kanaame's friends take him to the infirmary and lay him on a bed. After a short nap, he wakes up feeling better. The nurse suggests that he should go back to the class if he feels okay, but he insists he feels awful and fills out a form to leave early from school. After that, he meets Hiroyuki and Yota, who are also planning to skip class today. Yota suggests they go for karaoke, but Hiroyuki comes up to Kanaame and says seriously that he needs to discuss something about the game Hamada sent to him. They agree to meet at Kanaame's house later that night. Kanaame wonders what Hiroyuki is on about, but agrees and lets him go. He spends the day hanging out with Yota. Later in the afternoon, on the train ride home, Kanaame does the dumbest thing he could think of, and opens the game app, ignoring his friend's warning from earlier. He sees his character on the screen and brushes off his earlier concerns, thinking it's just a normal game. The battle stats show red 0, with a start button below it. He taps it and instantly gets paired with someone named Banda, who Kanaame recognizes as the local baseball club's mascot dressed in a panda costume. Kanaame wonders how the game already gave him an avatar name when he hasn't even made an account yet. Just then, he turns around and sees the real Banda sitting in front of him, with a knife in his hand. He stands up and starts walking towards him, all creepy-like, then attacks Kanaame with the knife. Kanaame dodges his attack and asks him what he's doing, but Banda just keeps attacking, without saying a single word. Kanaame blocks his knife with his bag, kicks him away, then runs for his life and gets off the train. He dashes to a nearby police station, and tells the officer that this weird-looking person tried to kill him. The officer thinks Banda hits Kanaame, and tries to stop Banda. Banda, without saying anything, takes down the officer in one strike. He moves towards Kanaame for the final blow, when suddenly, he gets shot in the back by a crossbow. It's Hiroyuki standing there, with the weapon. Hiroyuki tells Kanaame he'll win if he can escape the killer, or wait out until the timer stops on his screen. Banda uses invisibility and disappears like a real-life ninja. But Hiroyuki is able to see Banda and able to attack at him. Banda got shocked when his invisibility suddenly wore off, but then he went crazy and charged straight at Hiroyuki, stabbing him in the stomach. Kanaame lifted Hiroyuki and took him outside to find an ambulance. He asked what was happening and how Banda turned invisible. Hiroyuki explained it was probably his sigil power, which is a part of Darwin's game. They hide in the parking building from that killer. Kanaame tried calling for help, but Hiroyuki said they couldn't contact anyone outside the game. They sat tight, watching Banda scout the area for them. In this game, players' screens shows each other's rough positions, making it easier for killers to find their victims. Banda finally pinpointed them, in the parking building, and entered while they stayed hidden. Kanaame got a message, from someone named Shuka, offering help. Hiroyuki told Kanaame to run and leave him, saying he'd be safer that way. Kanaame heard him, but decided to distract Banda instead. He showed himself, and led Banda on a crazy chase. Finally, Kanaame left Banda behind, hiding in lockers. But Banda pulled out a gun he'd stolen earlier, and started shooting at every lockers. Then Kanaame suddenly turns the tables, and tackles him from behind, with a fire extinguisher, knocking him down. He jumps on top, and starts punching him, but Banda knocks him off, with a powerful punch to the face. As Banda advances towards him, with a knife, and invisibility on, Kanaame fears it's all over. But just then, a car driven by a couple of idiots, crashing into the invisible Banda, sending him flying into the wall. The idiots drive off in a hurry, thinking they hit something. Once they're gone, Banda becomes visible again and admits defeat. Kanaame's screen confirms it, and he watches as Banda peacefully vanishes. He says he enjoyed playing unlike his bad job, then disappears, leaving a body outline where he died. After that, Kanaame remembers his dying friend downstairs, and rushes towards him, calling an ambulance. But when he reaches the place, all he sees is a body outline there, and he realizes that Hiroyuki had died. Just then, he gets his final message, which says to survive from Hiroyuki. On a rooftop, the blonde girl Shuka gets a notification that her game friend Kanaame has defeated Banda, and says she is excited to play the game with him. The next morning, Kanaame wakes up at home and checks his game account. He finds out he won a ranked match, and got 10 points. Also, he's now ranked up to D3, and his life is still tough, but he unlocked the gacha feature. When he reads that, he tries the rare gacha feature for 1 point, winning a 2-star handgun. Suddenly, a delivery is thrown into his apartment. Opening the box, he finds a gun inside, and wonders how messed up this game really is. Kanaame texts Shuka, and they decide to meet in an abandoned warehouse at night. Kanaame chats with Shuka on text, and they decide to meet at an old warehouse at night. She plans to explain the game to him there. Initially, he's not sure about going, but decides to go anyway, since it's the only way to learn about the game. He leaves his gun behind, but spends all his money on a backpack full of self-defense tools. Meanwhile, some players from the 8th clan takes down some Yakuza members, killing everyone including their boss. They are investigating recent player deaths, with one case still open. Later that night, Kanaame meets Shuka at the warehouse. She lets him ask one question, before trusting him. He asks if there's a way to quit the game, but she explains the only ways are to die, or to win. He doesn't believe it, but she insists she didn't make the rules. She's just another player. Then she starts asking him questions, including about his sigil. She says, when new players start Darwin's game, a snake bite them. Snake gives them unique powers for playing this game. Player don't know when powers come, but they use it naturally. Screen shows name of power. Kanaame checks screen for his sigil name, but only error shows. Shuka say she can't trust someone who don't even know their sigil power's name. Then she plans to attack, but Kanaame blinded her with flashlight, and run away fast. He runs to the entrance, but Shuka closes the door, and attacks with her chains. Kanaame runs and hide behind the pipes. Shuka turn on all lights, and chases him. He tries all exits, but they are locked. Shuka says there is nowhere to run. She says she'll go easy on him if he comes out of hiding. She uses chain to chase him, which is her sigil power. While running, Kanaame complains about the game, and wishes for a weapon. Suddenly, a gun appears in his hand. He's surprised, and turns to shoot. Shuka dodges the bullet and gets surprised by gun. After that, Kanaame keeps running, as Shuka chases after him, and he keeps saying to her, "Let's call it even, I don't want any fight." At one point, he gets a chance to rest, and thinks about what she said about using sigil powers, like it's normal. He remembers when he made a gun appear in his hand, and then uses his sigil to create some tape and wire to set up a trap. Later, he tricks her near the electricity box, and shoots at her, but the gun hits a pipe instead. Shuka dodges the bullet, but it makes lights go off. Kanaame say he adjusted his eyes for dark before, so he can attack even in dark. He dodges chains and run to Shuka, makes stun gun and pushes her down, and put handgun on her face. He says, he don't want her to disappear like others, and she understands, that he really don't know anything, about game's truth. She surrenders, and accepts defeat and obeys him now. Some of her points go to Kanaame. After the fight, he falls asleep on her lap, wake up in her bed next day. She asks him, to make our own clan, in Darwin's game. If you like this video, please subscribe my YouTube channel.